Well, we started off talking about how to celebrate the 75th, and the discussions were largely about big parties and weekend events and things like that. And I think we then came to our senses and thought that actually the best thing to do would be to do some publishing. We came up with the idea of showing the range of British fiction since the war, because I think fiction is ultimately how a publishing house is judged, and Penguin has been at the forefront of fiction publishing. And we decided to do 5 books per decade, 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s. Tricky to do the 90s, I think, because too many contemporary authors involved. So once we decided on that, it was just a question of making the choices. Obviously, to some extent, we were hemmed in by people we couldn't get hold of. I think the only loss I regret is some of the big male hitters of the 1980s. We don't any longer, unfortunately, have Martin Amis or Julian Barnes or Graham Swift, Kazumi Ishiguro, and I think that is a bit of a loss. But apart from that, I think we did have access to people I wanted to have access to. As far as the introducers were concerned, that was quite fun. I sat down with a list and sort of worked them out. Most of the people I approached very keen to do it, 1 or 2 rather less keen. On occasions, people suggested books. It was actually Nick Hornby who quite rightly suggested that we had to have William Cooper and said he would do the introduction if we could. Will Self offered to write all 20 introductions, rather typically. We managed to get him down to just 2. As for the actual choice of books, one of the interesting things was dealing with authors who were still alive. An interesting case was Anita Bruckner, whose first choice she didn't like. She said it was a book she no longer liked, and it was she who suggested Latecomers, and there were 1 or 2 things like that.